Welcome back. Well, time to return to the TV sector and obviously the tough advertising market conditions being seen there. Let's return to our guest host, our co-host rather, James Manning, editor and publisher of Mediaweek. You sat down with Peter Wiltshire, as we saw, Nine's sales boss, this week. And obviously we've been seeing the tough advertising market for TV, and you asked him about that. And interesting to put your views to him too about the way the year went and the fact that Nine did come back after Easter.
Yeah, and as we heard last week on the show, Melissa Hay from OMD said, you know, yeah, Nine did convince us that they probably did have some content that would do well for them this year, and we asked him, yeah, how he convinced the agencies.
Let's have a listen to what he had to say.
I think what we worked hard on was our 7 p.m. strategy last year in terms of commissioning content that would sit in that 7 p.m. time slot across the year. And in the back half of last year, we proved successfully that that was going to win for us. So we worked hard on what 2012 needed to look like to build those bridges across a full year. And to be fair, you know, we launched with a show that didn't do so well at the start of the year, but then post-Easter came back with 3 pretty big guns, and that was The Block, The Voice, and of course Celebrity Apprentice. And all those shows, when they returned to the network, just changed the fortunes of our momentum for 2012. As you go through the year, those building blocks continue because we're about to walk into the biggest event of the year, which is the 2012 London Olympic Games, followed straight after or immediately after by Big Brother, which will sit in the 7 o'clock time slot for the next 13 weeks.
How challenging has it been chasing ad dollars despite having, you know, The Voice and The Block?
Well, I think if you're in a relatively difficult advertising market, we've just seen the January to June results come out, and the market looks to be down around about 3% in metro television. We've been fortunate enough to be building some ad share in that period, so ratings have obviously helped that result, and I'd rather be gaining share in a tough market than losing it.
Are we going to see the real lift in 2013? I mean, what will negotiations be like with The Voice for next year and 2 seasons of The Block?
Well, I think you've got to remember that The Voice and The Block make up just over 4% of our primetime schedule across the entire year. So you do have to have 95% more product than that to make a sustainable platform of programming. What is of comfort, I think, to those looking to invest in us next year is the reliability and the returning nature of our product we have. So when you know The Block is going to do the successes that it did this year again next year twice, when you know the biggest show on television from 2012 is back in 2013, there's a good chance Big Brother will be back as well. We've got our reliable slate of drama with Underbelly returning again next year, and of course Underbelly Badness about to hit the screens post the Olympics. You know, we do have a platform of product across the entire year that an advertiser could look to us and feel somewhat comforted in terms of their investment.
But it's those key shows that get all the headlines, get the big publicity, and I guess it also indicates that perhaps there wasn't a lot wrong with your schedule apart from a few key properties.
Yeah, I think there's always been a favourite, you know, a famous saying in television, you're only 2 shows away from being #1, and I think we probably demonstrated a bit of that truth. You know, we do have a very stable platform of programming, but when you can produce a couple of really big hits like we have this year, then it really does change your fortunes. I think also that what we're noticing now is great programs are really great, average programs are still average, and poor programs are really poor, and that field of play is growing dramatically.
You mentioned the Olympic investment's not just about those 2 to 3 weeks, it's to carry you on for, you know, to launch a lot of other product. We've already seen a lot of promos for Big Brother. I'm guessing we'll be seeing a lot more in the next couple of weeks. How's the market warmed to that returning?
Well, I think in early days there was question marks over Big Brother because they related it straight back to what they most recently recalled Big Brother to be, which was the series we saw on another network a few years ago. And that, no doubt, was at the end of a period of Big Brother's life cycle that was taking it to new levels every year, but those levels were sort of stooping to new lows, I guess, in terms of, you know, the behaviour you saw in that television show within the housemates and what we were seeing on screen. You know, I don't think Nine's approach to Big Brother is anything like what you've seen before. We are taking a completely different view around that format, and a view that is consistent with our 7 p.m. programming strategy, and that's about bringing families back around the television again. So what you'll see on air is a family television show at 7 p.m. every night, and as a result, a different cast, a far more positive style of broadcast, where you actually vote people to stay in the home, not evict them out of the home. So even that as a sentiment is a complete change of what you've seen. Sonia Kruger would no doubt have not signed up for this show if she thought she was going to be putting out a program that was something like we've seen before. So I think viewers will be quite surprised with what they see, and we're confident off the back of the Olympics. It does launch the day after the closing ceremony, and that gives us the best chance to talk to as many Australians through the Olympics to remind them that it's coming, and hopefully they vote with their remote controls in the living room and we get another good series out of the network this year.
Will we be seeing it 7 days on 2 channels?
6 days on one channel and potentially on another channel.
Okay, well, that'd be go, no doubt, but
Potentially.
it's still up in the air, is it?
Correct.
Well, you don't want to lay all your cards on the table. What else has attracted advertisers to the back half of this year?
I think Underbelly, you know, as a proven drama, is coming our way. We've got Kerry Packer's World Series cricket story called How's That? And that looks to be probably the drama event on television in 2012. It does look like stunning television for us. So, you know, when you take Big Brother from the end of August all the way through to November, there is a pretty, you know, consistent stable of programming that sits within that format, coupled with everything else, NRL finals series, of course, all of our news and current affairs running through the entire period. You know, we can deliver a product right the way through to Christmas that's going to be consistent for those investing. And so I think that's what, at the end of the day, we are seeing more volatility in ratings. We're seeing a lot more movement on all networks around the success or failure of various formats or shows. So if you can minimise that volatility by continuing to program familiar product, and that's probably what speaks well for us in 2013. Everything that we see back on air next year is a renewal of product you've seen and it's exceeded with this year.
2013, are we going to see more investment in sort of proven reality, big ticket drama and proven sport?
I think on Australian television per se, we are starting to see a movement way towards Australian commissioned product, and definitely the sort of US product that we've all relied on for so many years is starting to become less successful on television. In fact, it's probably the new channels that are really providing a large menu of opportunity to be able to see a lot of that product. And whilst it's important within your prime time fabric to have some of that product in there, Australians are definitely gravitating to Australian-produced television, and that's on all networks. You can see the big formats that are hitting home and resonating with viewers. My Kitchen Rules, MasterChef still did a reasonable number this year for 10. You know, dancing and all the entertainment formats you see, plus ours. It is definitely where Australian consumer viewing is trending.
Just lastly, the end of the year, do you think the market, can you see any signs of recovery? It's a big question. And you look at the numbers pretty closely every week. You seem to have the key demos covered off. Are you any chance to grab all people this year too?
No, I think we've got all the demos in the bag. I think that's you know, our ambition has never been to win total people. You know, it's easy to win total people if you stack your programming skew to 55 plus audiences, because you can get them in bulk and you can take a total people win quite easily. So I don't think total people win is anything to be proud of anymore. I think that you as a business have to be so commercially focused on your outcomes that attracting advertising investment in your network requires a significant success in the key demos that advertisers are chasing. So on 2554s and 1639s and grocery buys and those key ad demos, I think we've got the year in a bag, but total people may not be there. But again, it's not a focus for us. If it was, we wouldn't be succeeding in the ad market like I think we are at the moment.
And the market?
I think the market is interesting to watch. It's certainly moving significantly every month, and this quarter, because of the Olympic Games, we are seeing an element of ad avoidance happening where if you're in, you're in, and if you're not in, you're sort of running a bit shy of advertising per se on any medium. But I think with that in mind, there's going to be significant amount of pent-up energy from a bunch of advertisers that are probably going to see themselves deploy that savings into Q2 of the fiscal, and as a result, I'd expect to see the October-December quarter to be positive as opposed to what we've seen so far this year, which has been negative.
So, Peter Wiltshire, they're quite positive because it's interesting. We have seen some buyers being quoted as saying, look, the TV market at the moment is the toughest they've ever seen.
Yeah, I think he's using it within the context of what's happening. You know, he thinks that it mightn't deteriorate anymore, but I don't think he's predicting big growth. But he's saying, yeah, maybe some people who've been sitting on some of their budgets for a while could sort of put it into the market before Christmas.
Got to ask you about the ratings for some of the big finales that we've seen on other commercial free-to-air networks. Of course, MasterChef. How did it fare compared to previous years?
It wasn't too bad year on year. Just the winner announced got over 2 million. The final episode just under 2 million. So that's pretty much line ball for last year. But compared to the sort of first and second years of the franchise, no, it was definitely down a little bit. Australia's Got Talent's probably the one that's a bit of a worry. That's for 7. Didn't have a great year, but they've had about 7 or 8 runs of the show, but it was down significantly on last year. Probably the audiences had halved for some of those grand finals, but I think it was something like 21 episodes over 15 weeks. If we do see it come back, they'll probably be shortened and try and get it back to what it was like in its early days and just compacted a lot together. Although it's not Seven's way. Seven usually just run something as much as they can and then maybe just give it a rest completely.
Just on MasterChef, because obviously it is the big rater for 10. The fact that the numbers, aren't sort of back at those levels they were in the first and second seasons, what does this mean for its turnaround strategy? What's next for the franchise?
Well, I think that the franchise is definitely going to stay, that's for sure. We're still their number one program by a long shot, so their MasterChef won't be going anywhere. They'll definitely be back. They've got the All-Stars coming up. How will that go? We've had Junior MasterChef, was it last year? Or didn't do very well, so that was too much MasterChef. But will All-Stars be too much? We're not sure, and it'll be up against the games, so it'll be hard to get a real idea of how much the format was to blame if it doesn't do well, or was it the opposition?
Just looking, I guess, at one of the other shows there, The Shire. What happened to the audiences this week for The Shire? Obviously, there's been a lot of talk about it.
Yeah, it was down a fair bit, actually. It was a bit of a palaver on the morning after the program screen, because the figures came out initially and it looked like it had gone up significantly, but it hadn't. It had actually gone down fairly significantly. So jury's still out after 2 weeks. Again, it's going to be still one of the network's best shows this week, but it was down on its debut figures.
All right, let's just talk through the ratings. This is for week 29 for free-to-air, and what we saw there. MasterChef Sunday, obviously that not the final
all
day.
All news and MasterChef there.
Yeah,
Sunday night doing very well.
Turning the page as well, and Revenge there in there for 7 as well.
Yep.
And just having a look at the top 5 sport programs on subscription TV, they see the Roosters versus the Rabbitohs at most watched, and the non-sport shows, top 5 there. Modern Family, the winner for Fox 8.
Lifestyle on Fox 8.
Just finally, Fremantle Media has announced a partnership with a New Zealand production house.
Yeah, Imagination, they've got an interesting catalogue. Ironically, they do MasterChef in New Zealand, a show that Fremantle lost over here, so they won't be able to sort of cross-pollinate with that at all. They also do New Zealand's Got Talent. They've got a lot of odd docs too they make for New Zealand TV, which haven't been going that well here in Australia this year, but so we'll see what that partnership gets up to.
James, great to see you as always. Thank you very much. James Manning there from Mediaweek. That's all we've got time for. Thanks for your company.